Good evening. Today is Monday, March 22nd. S&P 500 futures sold off a little bit on the open last night after hours and tested 3890 level quite a few times last night, but the level obviously was bought, and after the open today, it was a pretty much a straight line up movement till 39.44, over 50 points move since the low. Then we sold off after 3 o'clock a little bit and closed the day up 33 points.
I thought we would possibly go through the Soji level as well as the Biden level, the constructor level and the Soji level in one day, but uh, no, no such luck.
It was
The,
closed 5 points, but yeah, it was a good beginning for the week, which you were expecting last week. And there were lots of woke news, as you like to call them. New York City mayor asked Cuomo to pause the reopening because COVID cases are going up, as New Jersey's governor just paused their own reopening the day after trying to reopen. Because
well, I think the most woke thing was we made a monkey of ourselves in the Alaska talks with China. China invoked the entire ideas, what the progressives are saying about America, and they said it. They just repeated what the progressives said about how bad we are and how our republic is created racist and sexist, and there's nothing that we could say because we say it every day about ourselves.
right.
All Blinken could mumble was that the Chinese took too much time in describing how bad we are. So I think that was probably the most woke thing. And of course, it's always very woke. And now we're back to the wokeism where the technology is doing a lot better than the S&P. That's the way it should be. That's the way the market loves it. Very woke.
Right. It's also the Nasdaq is partly outperforming because of the lockdowns, which again should be beneficial to big high tech firms. As Europe is extending the lockdown as well, Germany extending the lockdown. They seem to be determined in Europe to kill yet another tourist season, second in a row. As so many countries in Europe depend on the tourist money, it's really not good for the European economy. But here we are. We have more mutant strains apparently that are very dangerous. And in Florida, we're all open, except for Miami Beach. I'm sure you heard the news. South Beach has been complete madness over the weekend with spring breakers. Miami Beach now has curfew at 8 p.m. and the whole city is shut down. It's just madness out there. And in more woke news, the 3 trillion infrastructure plan package has been leaked to the New York Times, and the main goal of the plan seems to be to stop global warming and to help narrow economic inequality. I think they should start that Build Back Better plan with a better name, because the Build Back Better is very hard to pronounce and it doesn't really flow in proper English. But anyway, also Bitcoin was in the news quite a bit today as it sold off under 55,000 because Powell was talking about it. He said that crypto assets are highly volatile and therefore not really useful as a store of value, and they're not backed by anything. He also said that they're more of an asset for speculation, so they're not particularly in use as a means of payment. It's more of a speculative asset. It's essentially a substitute for gold rather than for the dollar. And another interesting thing he said about fiat currencies, that these are issued with the benefit of the public in mind. So Bitcoin didn't like that, but I don't think it's going to last long. It seems like all the stroking that they've been doing before didn't usually fail to bring Bitcoin down for long. We'll see if this time is different. And bonds were up today, finally. What do you make of that, Victor?
Well, we had a very green day on Baron Coleman Day. Everything was up. That's not that bad for stocks. You would think that with another 3 trillion down the road, that bonds would somehow adjust. It was amazing that bonds only went up a half a point today. I noticed that a group in Washington that sort of, they're half academics, they're half consultants, and they're half part of the administration, they're half part of the foundation. You can't really pin them down. Hold important political positions. I noticed that Susan Rice, they're called flexions. There are a lot of flexions now running around it. One of the good things about the Bloomberg administration was that all lobbying was eliminated, because you couldn't buy anything from, you couldn't buy some earmarks and things for your customers by giving political gifts to the Bloomberg administration. But now we have a lot of flexions running around, and I mentioned it. It's amazing that Susan Rice, who was a flexion galore, she has a net worth of $37 million. Presumably, she's got that from speaking fees and consulting fees. And the Defense Secretary, General Austin, is he's a flexion. He's made a lot of money as a consultant. So now he can devote his time to diversity and eliminating racism and hairstyles. And so you would think that, I mean, everything is woke. I mean, it's great for the market. It even had a nice sell-off at the end. So had 2 big sell-offs in a row, less than 1% away from the all-time high. So with a little bit of luck, a little bit of woke, we should have another all-time high. I don't know when it's going to be. I'm not predicting it for tomorrow. Would you be interested? Do you think our listeners would be interested in the views on immigration from some real Texas people, as memorialized in The Time It Never Rained by Elmer Kelton? There's been a lot of negative news about immigration, and one thing that a libertarian is ambivalent about, because a human being wants to better himself, and anything that prevents him from bettering himself is not consistent with the pursuit of happiness. I thought we might hear how Texans felt about in 1950 about immigrants. Let me set the scene. Charlie comes across three what they used to call wetbacks, the illegal immigrants. They come to Charlie and say, "Well, we want to work. We work hard. We don't want to beg. Can you give us some work?" And he says, "No, it's illegal for me to give you work, but I'll give you some food." Here are the two border patrolmen.
Wetbacks. Nancy didn't ask a question, he made a statement. Then you won't mind if we look around a little. Too much honesty could get a man disliked. Tightly, Charlie said, "Help yourself." He said more than that under his breath. Damn Yankee. You could tell it as quick as he opened his mouth. Damn Yankees always coming down here on us like locusts, thinking they're 2 notches better than Jesus Christ. He had an old Texan aversion to Northerners. His heritage from a Confederate grandfather made it automatic that he classed them all as damn Yankees until they had proven to his satisfaction they were all right. That sometimes took a right smart approval. Nance studied Teofilo's shearing crew and started to climb over the fence into the pen.
Nance is the border
He said,
patrolman.
"They're all local Mexicans. You won't find any wetbacks in there." "How do you know till you look?" Nance climbed over and shoved his way through the sheep, his eyes on the shears. Stupid as well as arrogant, Charlie thought irritably. This would be a slap in the face to Teofilo's men. To be mistaken for a wetback was considered no compliment. Maybe they would bounce Nance out of there on his butt. On reflection, Charlie knew they wouldn't do that. They would simply turn on a cold contempt and mock him with their eyes. Generations of living in this country as a minority group had honed to a fine edge this ability of the Mexican people to put a gringo in his place without speaking a word or making any overt move that might invite stern reprisal. Charlie thought, "You've never been insulted, Yankee boy, till you've been insulted in silence by a Mexican who knows how to give you the truth." Parker's jaw ridged. "I'll apologize for him, Mr. Flagg. Occasionally, they send us one of these new boys who already knows it all." One of the shearers snickered, and the others followed suit. Even the Thai boys took it up. People who lived long in the border country usually could tell at a glance whether a man was native born or if he had recently arrived with muddy water dripping from his clothes. It showed in details hard to explain but easy to recognize. The clothing, the haircut, the general manner. To one who knew Spanish, a wetback was betrayed by his speed. Even a Yankee chota soon learned to know. Motioning broadly with his big hands, Teofilo Garcia assured Nance that his shearers were all right. "Every man here is puro American and votes Democrat." Nance's face darkened in anger as the men quietly mocked him. He turned on his heel and pushed roughly back through the sheep. With mild rebuke, Parker said, "I told you, if you get the locals mad at us, who's going to tip us off about the West?" Nance stiffly rejected any reproach. "I didn't like their attitude." Charlie felt a glow of quiet triumph. He didn't dislike border patrolmen exactly. He realized they had a duty to perform. It was that duty which he disliked. In his view, the wetback was no criminal. He was a hungry man, desperately seeking work. And it took a lot of guts to set out across uncounted miles of unknown country in hopes of bettering oneself. Charlie identified because of his pioneer heritage. This guttiness, he thought, was a character strength which was disappearing from American life. He was glad they still had it in Mexico. He glanced in the direction of his house, and the breath went out of him. The 3 Mexicans were walking toward the pens, swinging those telltale cotton satchels. The satchels were full now from there he had been to the pantry. I chihuahua. Didn't those innocents know what it sort of looked like? Parker saw them about the time Charlie did, and he glanced at Charlie in disappointment. Charlie was tempted to wave the three away, to shout for them to run, but that could get him sent to jail or at least heavily fined. A ranchman could feed a wetback or even hire him to work without actually being liable to prosecution. No penalty had been provided, but the minute he advised him to run, he became an accessory to unlawful flight. So Charlie watched, numb, as the three Mexicans halted, realization striking them at the club. "Alto!" Parker shouted. "Alto!" The three took out for the brush as hard as they could run. The boy was following the lead. The oldest son was hanging back, looking over his shoulder at the faltering old man. Nance hurried to the green car, reached into the glove compartment, and pulled out a pistol. Charlie's blood went cold. He wanted to shout, but no words came. He was sure Nance would fire if he did. But Nance fired harmlessly into the air, causing a tied horse at the fence to lunge against the reins and snap them in two. The horse went trotting off in fear and confusion, stepping on one broken rein and jerking its head down. The old man stopped and raised his hand. The oldest son, seeing his father halt, turned and came back to stand dejectedly beside him. Only the boy kept running. Parker waved for Nance to go after the young Mexican. Nance shouted something at the halted pair as he passed them on the run. He disappeared into the green tangle of mesquite. Parker walked out and brought the pair back. He allowed them to stop and pick up the satchels they had dropped when they started to run. The boy held on to his. The old Mexican's eyes swam in tears of frustration. The younger man stood silent, defiant. Parker brought handcuffs out of the car. In Spanish, he said, "I would not use these if you had not run." The viejo said in a thin voice, "A man tried." Charlie stood where he was until the pair were near him. Shaken, he said to the old man, "I am sorry. Why did you come back? I would not go without taking the baton again. We had nothing to give you but our family." And that, for Charlie, came at a hell of a price. While they waited for Nance, Charlie asked Parker, "What you going to do with him?" "Jail a day or two, then we'll ship them back across the river. They came here because they was hungry. They'll still be hungry when we send them back." Parker flared. "You think you're telling me something new? What am I supposed to do about it? You know the law." "I know the law is as blind as a one-eyed mule in a root cellar. Don't it ever bother you to take them back across?" Parker studied the forlorn Mexican, and Charlie saw pity come into the patrolman's face. "I wake up nights, but hell, I don't pass the laws. I just carry them out. If it wasn't me, somebody else would do it. At least I try to treat them human. Some people wouldn't."
Okay, so those are the two sides of the immigrant problem. So they're all in pens and cages, and the Progressive administration won't allow any press to take any pictures. Of course, they blame the whole situation on the previous administration, as they blame everything on them. But you're an immigrant. My family were immigrants, and a lot of the great things in America have come from immigrants.
Right.
Well,
To add my 2 cents to the immigration picture, given that I have some background in it, the immigration rules have changed. When I came into this country, nobody gave me anything. I haven't gotten a cent from the government. I worked 2 jobs and I had to fill out my own immigration papers, and I didn't have an access to a lawyer. And when I did, I had to pay for it. Versus right now, you come and you get benefits, you get health care, you get monthly payments, you get access to the lawyer who helps you how to fill up all your documents, you get free education, you get everything. And so it also disincentivizes the people to achieve, as they're given everything to begin with. And it's a different situation than when immigration was in the 1950s or in 19th century. People came for a better life, and now people come for better benefits.
Still, they come because there's a better life here, and
Yes. And how many of them come and then complain that the country is racist and the country is bad, and yet they keep coming and then they keep complaining. So
well, they vote. They vote. Okay, let's end with the proverb of the day. Assuming that you have survived the rigors of the mid-game, the depth of the ending awaits you with deception, but the end game is indeed the most difficult part of chess, checkers, and commodities. It is a phase where harmony, precision, and imagination blend into one aesthetic whole. The Dawn ending was very much unwoke today. I didn't like, everything was going well until the market dropped 15 points at the ending, and but it sets us up for something good. Cocksureness in board games and commodities is a sign of conceit and the badge of ignorance. Let's hope that the Flexians are in control tomorrow, and that the bonds aren't too much turned off by another 3 trillion in buying votes, and we'll have an exciting day, I'm sure. Thank you very much.